A father dives into pitch black water with a bomb strapped to his chest. Not to escape, but to feed himself to a creature the size of a building. His family watches from a raft above, helpless. But what drove a man to willingly become shark food? The answer goes deeper than anyone expected. The story actually begins long before that moment. It starts at night, on an oil rig platform sitting in the middle of the ocean off the coast of Baja California, Mexico. Two men are working the night shift on a platform called El Diamante. One of them, a guy named Nacho, is sent underwater to check on the submarine pipeline. He dives down into the dark water and starts doing his job. But when he finishes and begins swimming back up toward the surface, something pulls him away and fast, dragging him deeper into the open water. And then something strange happens. All around Nacho, the water fills with glowing jellyfish and small colorful fish. It looks absolutely beautiful, but none of it is real. It is all a vision, a hallucination being created inside his head. While he is lost in this dreamlike moment, something massive comes out of the darkness and takes him completely. He is gone just like that. Up on the surface, his partner on the boat is waiting. He doesn't know what happened to Nacho, but the boat starts shaking beneath him. He turns on the lights to try and see into the water below. He doesn't get much time to figure out what is happening because something enormous comes up from the water and destroys him and the boat instantly. Whatever is in that water is not a normal shark, and this is just the beginning. The next morning, a man named Paul Sturgis is driving through the Mexican countryside with his family. His wife Inez, his daughter Audrey, and his young son Tommy are all with him. Paul works as a safety inspector for an oil company called Nixon Oil, and he has been sent to check on El Diamante, the same oil rig platform from the night before. He decides to turn the work trip into a small family vacation, thinking it would be a nice break for everyone. But when they arrive at the small town near the coast, everything feels wrong. Paul remembers this town from years ago, and it used to be lively and full of people. Now it looks completely abandoned and falling apart. The streets are mostly empty, the buildings are run down, and the people who are still there look at the family with very strange expressions, like they are looking at people they already feel sorry for. Paul approaches a man cleaning a fish and asks if he speaks English. No answer.
Hello, excuse me, do you speak English?
Then another man nearby, called El Rey, calls out to Paul. When Paul mentions he works for Nixon Oil Company, the company that basically built the entire town, El Rey's expression goes cold and hostile. Things start feeling tense between the two men until Inez steps in, smiling and introducing herself and the children, immediately softening the situation with her calm and kind approach. She asks El Rey to point them toward the nearest restaurant, and he agrees to take them there himself. As they walk through the empty streets, they pass by a large statue dedicated to Tlaloc, the Aztec god of rain. El Rey stops to show his respect at the statue. Paul's young son Tommy, curious as always, spots a small figurine sitting beside the larger statue and quietly swaps his chocolate bar for it, slipping the little idol into his pocket. Nobody really notices what he has done, but it becomes important later. When they reach the restaurant, Paul gets word from his company that he needs to get out to El Diamante as soon as possible. He tells Inez not to worry, that he will be back before evening, and asks the bartender to keep a watch over his family while he is gone. Before heading to the harbor, Paul stops at the harbor guard post to ask the guard to radio out to the rig to let them know he is coming. The guard agrees to do it, but the moment Paul walks away, the guard puts down the radio, pulls out a photograph of Paul, and tears it apart. Something strange is going on, and Paul has no idea.
Do me a favor, radio out to the rig, let them know I'm on my way.
At the dock, Paul meets a local boat driver named Choco who is supposed to take him to the rig. As they sail out, Paul asks Choco what happened to the town. Choco nervously answers that El Diamante woke something up, a demon. But before they can get far, Choco stops the boat at a small island dock and refuses to go any further. He tells Paul that another boat is available and that someone named Pepe is waiting for him at the rig. Paul is frustrated but has no choice. He gets into the smaller boat alone and continues toward El Diamante by himself. Back at the restaurant, things go wrong fast. A man sitting at the bar notices Inez and Audrey and starts approaching them in a very uncomfortable and threatening way. He grabs Audrey's arm, which immediately makes Inez snap. She picks up a glass bottle and smashes it over the man's head, then holds up the broken shard as a weapon and backs her children toward the exit. They reach their car outside only to find that someone has slashed all the tires. With angry men starting to follow them, Inez grabs the children and runs down to the shore. She finds a fisherman there and begs him to take them out to El Diamante where Paul is. He refuses at first, but when he sees the group of threatening men closing in, he agrees to take them. They speed off into the open ocean. Hey, pause for a second and tell us, what country are you watching this from and what time is it there right now? We love hearing from people all around the world, so drop it in the comments below. Meanwhile, Paul arrives at El Diamante and immediately notices that something is very wrong. The water around the platform has turned dark and black from oil leaking into the sea. Destroyed life rafts and diving equipment are floating around. The place feels completely deserted. He climbs up and starts calling out, but no one answers. He makes his way into one of the inner rooms and suddenly two men corner him from behind. One holding a machete, the other with a metal tool raised. Paul quickly explains who he is and that he works for the company. The men recognize him and lower their weapons. Their names are Chato and Junior. They are the only two crew members still on the rig. Chato explains that the rest of the crew either tried to escape or did not survive. The radio has been broken for weeks, nothing on the rig is working properly, and the Nixon Oil Company, momentarily Paul's own employer, knew about all of it and never sent help or resources to fix anything. Before Paul can fully process this, Junior suddenly signals everyone to stay quiet. He heard something. He looks out toward the water using binoculars and spots a boat approaching the rig. It's Paul's family. Nobody noticed them coming, and just beneath the surface of the water, a massive fin is cutting through the water right alongside their boat. Chateau fires a flare gun in the opposite direction, and Junior starts banging on the metal structure of the rig, making as much noise as possible to draw the creature's attention away.
What's that?
It works. The giant shark turns away from the family's boat and crashes into Paul's speedboat instead, sinking it completely. The fisherman who brought Inez and the children speeds up and rushes toward the rig. Chateau and Junior shout at him to go faster. The family gets on board just in time, but as Audrey is stepping off the boat while still holding onto it, she slips and falls into the water. She immediately sees something horrifying beneath her, what appears to be dismembered body parts floating in the dark water below. She screams and panics as her parents pull her back up. The giant shark had been heading straight for her, but she was pulled out just in the nick of time. The fisherman doesn't wait even a second. He immediately tries to speed away back towards shore, but the enormous creature launches out of the water and comes down on the boat, destroying it completely and taking the fisherman with it. Everyone on the rig watches in total shock. Inez brings the children inside and tries to calm everyone down. Paul and Inez demand that Chateau explain everything. Instead of talking, Chateau simply points toward the water through the window. The message is clear. There is no leaving this place easily.
It's not your fault. You couldn't have known. None of us could.
Paul asks Chateau for a full breakdown of El Diamante, the control room, the generator, the satellite, all of it. Chateau tells him bluntly that nothing works, not one system. The shark has been attacking the rig regularly, causing more and more damage each time. The oil company knew about all of this and did nothing. They never sent supplies, they never sent help. Chateau and Junior stayed behind because they knew nobody was coming and felt responsible for watching over what was left. When the rig gets hit again and Paul almost falls into the water, Chateau grabs him just in time. They head inside to look at the blueprints. Paul figures out that they need to fix the auxiliary line to get the backup generator working, but to fix it, someone has to go underwater. Chateau and Junior volunteer to go down in the rig's diving bell while Paul supervises from above. Inez is terrified by this plan. She asks Chateau why the creature is so focused on this specific place. Chateau explains everything calmly. He says the shark is not just an animal. It is known as El Demonio Negro, the Black Demon. It is connected to Tlaloc, the Aztec god of rain, who is furious at what humans have done, cutting down trees, polluting rivers, destroying ecosystems, taking far more than they should. The Black Demon was sent as punishment, and on top of being incredibly powerful, it has the ability to create hallucinations in the minds of its victims, making them see things that are not there.
This is not just any shark, or just a little one.
Like the vision of sea creatures that pulled Nacho's attention away, or the vision of body parts that Audrey saw in the water. Paul refuses to believe any of this, but even his own family seems to believe what Chateau is saying, which frustrates him even more. Chateau and Junior get into the diving bell and descend into the water. They fix the auxiliary line quickly, but as they are heading back, Chateau notices something attached to one of the rig's support legs. A demolition bomb. It was placed there deliberately and it still has hours left before it goes off. This means someone planned for El Diamante to be destroyed, with everyone on it. Junior is still in the bell when the Black Demon suddenly attacks it. Paul tries to retract the bell using the crane, but it is too late. The creature destroys the reinforced steel bell completely. Chateau manages to resurface beside the rig and Paul pulls him up. Then Junior floats to the surface too, and when Paul tries to pull him up, he realizes the horrifying truth. Junior's lower body is completely gone. Chateau breaks down. The children are kept away from the scene. Audrey quietly closes the window so Tommy does not have to witness anything. The grief on the rig is heavy and real. Paul loses his composure. He goes to Inez and shouts at her for bringing the children to the rig in the first place, saying he left them somewhere safe. Inez pushes back immediately. The place he left them was not safe at all.
You told me this was not just a couple of hours stop.
A drunk man had grabbed Audrey and their tires were slashed. She had no choice but to find him. Paul calms down quickly and apologizes. When Tommy comes to ask where Junior is, Audrey covers for the adults and tells him Junior is busy working in the electrical room. Tommy, young and trusting, accepts the answer. Go ahead and drop a comment right now. Tell us what country you're from and what time it is there. It really means a lot to see where our viewers are watching from. Paul goes back to work. He notices what looks like boats in the distance and fires a flare gun to signal for help, but Chateau immediately stops him and tells him there are no boats. It is just another vision from the Black Demon trying to manipulate Paul's mind. Paul realizes Chateau was telling the truth about the hallucinations, even if he still struggles to accept the bigger explanation. Chateau confronts Paul about the oil company, calling him a puppet and getting physical with him in his frustration. Inez steps in and separates the two men before anything gets worse. Paul walks away to be with his children, trying to hold himself together. Young Tommy, meanwhile, has been reading about Tlaloc and quietly puts together a small collection of figurines, including the one he picked up from the town and others he found on the rig. He builds a tiny boat from what he can find, places all the figurines on it, takes it to the dock area, and lets it float on the water, praying silently for safe passage. But right as he does this, the black demon crashes into the rig's leg and Tommy is sent falling into the ocean. Paul and Inez rush out in a panic. Inez jumps in after Tommy while Paul grabs something metal and starts banging it hard against the rig structure, creating vibrations in the water to pull the creature's attention toward him and away from his wife and son. It works. The shark turns away and Inez brings Tommy up safely. Everyone gets back on the rig, but the moment of relief is short-lived. Inez has found something while searching through the rig's office, a set of documents, safety inspection reports, annual reports about El Diamante's condition, and every single one of them is signed by Paul. The documents show incident after incident, warning after warning, proof that El Diamante was never safe to operate, and yet operations continued because Paul signed off on every report saying everything was fine. Inez confronts him. In front of the children, she says it out loud. Their father had been signing false safety documents for years, letting people work on a dangerous rig just to keep his own job and income. Paul tries to explain himself. He says he was just doing what the company told him. He says he did it for the family, to build a better life. Inez doesn't accept the excuse. She says Paul always had a choice, and he chose wrong.
You're gonna deny it now?
Deny what?
Broken and exhausted, Paul sits with Chato and finally tells him everything. When Paul first got the assignment to inspect El Diamante, it was right before his wedding to Inez. He wrote an honest report, one that listed every single problem with the rig. But when he turned it in, the company called him in and made it clear. Overlook the problems or someone else would be found to do it. Paul wanted to secure his future with Inez and a family, so he changed the reports. And he kept doing it, year after year, never knowing how bad things had truly gotten out at sea. And now the worst part, the demolition bomb attached to the rig's leg was placed there by the Nixon Oil Company themselves. They knew their negligent practices were going to come to light eventually, so they decided to use Paul as their scapegoat. They had him sign all the paperwork, sent him out to the rig, and planned to blow the whole thing up with him inside, so he would take all the blame and they would walk away clean. Chato listens to everything and tells Paul simply, "Fix your mistakes. Do the right thing." Paul now knows exactly what he needs to do. He manages to reroute the cooling system and restore power to the generator. Chato is finally able to use the radio briefly before it breaks down again. But it is just long enough for Choco, who has been sleeping on his boat nearby, to hear the signal. Meanwhile, Inez and the children work on patching up an inflatable life raft they found, using dissolved styrofoam and waterproof material from old life jackets to seal the holes.
Grab the acetone and the life jackets from the lockers.
Before we get to the final moments, drop a comment below. Tell us what you would have done if you were in Paul's position. Would you have made the same choices? Let us know. Paul lays out his final plan to Chato. He is going to go underwater and manually seal the repair valve on the drill line. If he can trigger the blowout preventer, it will seal the well and stop the oil from leaking, which should begin to calm things down. And then he is going to retrieve the demolition bomb from the rig's leg and use it against the black demon, putting an end to the creature once and for all. Chato knows that Paul is not likely to come back from this. Paul knows it too. He asks Chato to take care of his family no matter what happens. The family comes together and forms a circle. Audrey asks if they can pray. For the first time in all the years they have been together, Paul, who never believed in anything, agrees. Chato leads the prayer. Afterward, Paul suits up in his diving gear and walks toward the water. Inez tries to stop him when she realizes what he is about to do. Paul tells her about the bomb. He tells her he needs to fix what he broke. She asks if he is going to take down the monster. Paul looks at her and says quietly that the Megalodon is not the real monster. He is, and this is his way of making it right. They say goodbye one last time. Chato leads Inez, Audrey, and Tommy onto the inflatable raft and they begin moving away from the rig.
You will get my family off this rig.
Below the surface, Paul seals the repair valve successfully and triggers the blowout preventer. The oil stops leaking, the well is sealed, then the black demon sees him. Paul hides inside the metal framework of the rig's structure, buying himself a few more seconds. He contacts his family through the radio for the very last time. He talks to Inez, he talks to Audrey, and then he talks to Tommy. He tells them to make sure the documents get into the hands of the people in the town, so they can use the evidence to take Nixon Oil Company down properly. He tells each of them he loves them, and then he says goodbye. Paul lets go of the structure. He lowers himself down into the open water. The black demon rises from below, massive, ancient, unstoppable, and swallows him whole. The bomb detonates from inside. The explosion tears through the creature completely and the black demon is gone. On the raft above, the family hears the explosion and watches the water erupt beneath them. They hold each other and cry. Moments later, El Rey arrives with Choco and another man in a rescue boat. They bring Paul's family safely to shore. As they travel, everyone watches El Diamante, the oil rig that caused so much damage and took so many lives, finally collapse and sink into the sea. Inez holds her children close and tells them that Paul will always be with them. Tommy takes off the small necklace he had been wearing, the one with shark teeth that Junior had once given him. He holds it for a moment, kisses it gently, and lets it sink down into the water as a quiet way of honoring both his father and Junior. In the very last scene, the tiny wooden boat that Tommy had made and set afloat earlier, carrying all his little Tlaloc figurines, is slowly pulled down beneath the surface of the ocean. The god's anger has finally been settled, the sea grows calm, and the story of the black demon comes to a close. And that's the full story of The Black Demon, a film about greed, guilt, and what a person is willing to do when there is nothing left to lose but the people they love most. If you watched all the way to the end, drop a comment and tell us what country you're from and what time it is there right now. Don't forget to like this video and subscribe to the channel so you never miss another recap. We'll see you in the next one.